So I hit 20,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. And instead of celebrating the usual way, I had a cool idea. What if I let Google Gemini's brand new Imagen Ultra AI do it for me? We worked hand in hand like real partners. So I designed this really awesome 20K poster. I built some commercial-ready ads, and I actually even tried to compete against ChatGPT in making a storybook. And trust me when I say that, it did much, much, much better than ChatGPT at making storybooks. So in this video, we're going to dive deep into the new Gemini features together. Grab a seat because it's going to be a long one. All right, so I've broken this video into 4 main parts. The first part, we're going to check out the new Gemini Imagen 4 Ultra. And to do that, we're going to use it to create this 20K poster and these 4 other artworks that I did. After that, we're going to do a comparison between how it competes against ChatGPT to see which one is better. Now, second, we're going to jump right into the new Gemini feature specifically made to design and prototype storybooks. And now you are going to love this. Third, we're going to check out the new Gemini Gems and see how it can help you on your creative journey. And finally, we're going to just take a sneak peek at all the other Google AI tools that they launched a few days ago. Like I said, this is going to be a long one, so strap up and let's get going. Right now, everybody has access to Google Gemini, but the issue is the new Imagen 4 Ultra is not available through Gemini. You actually have to go through a separate website to get access to this. It was actually made for developers who would want to use the API key to actually create their own apps, and they'll have unlimited usage. But for everyday people like you and I, we have to access it through the website called aistudio.google.com. So you got to open up your browser and type in aistudio.google.com. Now, when you open it, this is what you see. Now you have a dashboard on your left that says chat, stream, generate media, build, and history. For this particular purpose, we're going to go to generate media. Now, this is where you get access to the new Imagen 4 Ultra. On this page, you got to click on Imagen. That takes you straight into it. And this is the interface that you see. Now, right off the bat, you have to go to the far right where you see Imagen 4 and click on the drop down. You're going to see there's new under all these states. Now, if you see this, it means you're on the right track. What we need to test out is actually the Google Imagen 4 Ultra. That is the new one. The rest of them, you already have access to them through the regular Gemini chatbot. Now, what makes this unique? Now, this is the part that I like. From this area, you actually get access to change the aspect ratios to whatever you want, and the very cool feature of actually changing the output resolution. Now, you have 2 options to select from. The first option says 1K and the second option says 2K. Now, obviously, this means that you're going to have a much higher resolution if you pick the 2K version over the 1K version. So we're going to select the 2K version and then finally put in our prompt right here and describe what we want to create, and then we are going to create it. So let's see how that works. Since I've already created a poster, this is just going to be a walkthrough of the process I use. Of course, we're going to run some of the prompts and see the results we get, and then you're going to understand. But I'm going to walk you through what I did, and then we're going to redesign the poster that I already worked on. So let's start by creating the 20K text effect that goes right above my photo here. Now, this is how I did it. So the very first thing I did was to get inspiration for the kind of effect that I wanted to use for the 20K. Now, obviously, when it comes to things like this, the only place I go to get ideas is either Behance or Pinterest. In this case, I'm going to go to Pinterest and type out text effects and look through to see exactly the type of effects that I'm looking for and just bounce through all of these options. And if I see something that I like, I'm going to click it and just say, maybe this is what I'm looking for, maybe this is not what I'm looking for. So come around and see something like this. So some people on Pinterest already have images created with prompts, so you can just go in there, copy the prompt and just paste it into your text to image generator and wait for the results. So in this case, I did like this particular effect, so I took the prompt, added a few words of mine, and then went over to Imagen 4 and pasted it in. So this is what I got. So now that I have my prompt, I'm gonna go ahead and paste it in. The prompt reads like this: a high resolution 3D render of 20K in the shape of a puffy inflatable pillow. The foam is soft, rounded, and lightly squished with visible stitching and matte textile texture. It has a nice gradient and displayed floating at a 45-degree angle on a white background. The reason why I added a white background is because I want to cut it out and put it on my photo. Now, if you look at my photo, it mostly is in the day, so it will be easier to cut out with white than it will be with black. So if the picture had a much darker feel, I would actually put it on a black background instead of a white background, because once you cut out the background, it blends much easier. So after I get this, I make sure that I am on the Imagen 4 Ultra. I'm going to pick an aspect ratio I want. Since I'm going to cut this out anyway, I can pick any aspect ratio I want and make sure that the resolution is 2K so you can get the best resolution possible. So now I'm going to hit run, and look how fast this generates. If you've been generating images with ChatGPT so far, you know how long that can take. But check how fast the Google Gemini actually creates images. And it has a little bar down here that tracks how long it's taking. So for this specific image, it has run for 6 seconds so far, 7, and it's counting down. So you're going to see how long it takes to create this. And last I'm going to do an example to see how long it's going to take ChatGPT to make it. So now it's actually done. It created it in much less time than we thought, and this is the option that we had. And I think it looks really cool. The first time I tried it, I got a much colorful option. This time it looks more like pastel, but we're going to open it up and take a look at something. So now we're going to zoom in, and you can tell right from here how much resolution we are getting from this picture. Just look at that. It looks really, really clean, right? Beautiful. So now that we've downloaded our text effect, we're going to jump onto Photoshop where I did the design. Now this can be done in Canva or any other software, but I prefer to use Photoshop because it's what I grew up with and I just love using the software. So let's go on into Photoshop. Since it's going on Instagram, we're going to use the new Instagram poster size. So I'm going to create a new file, head in here, make it the pixels, go onto 1350 by 1080 and go to pixels, make it 1350 by 1080. Put my resolution at 300 and create. And now that I have my canvas, I'm going to go grab my picture. So this is a beautiful picture of myself that I love that a friend of mine shot a few months ago at the Cannes Creative Festival. So we're going to use that since I like the flair and the colors in the photo. So I'm going to grab the picture, go onto Photoshop and drop it in like so. So first we have a problem. We notice that the picture is not filling out the sides of the canvas. So what I'm going to do is use the Photoshop generative fill feature to actually fill out the sides. And then the second problem is there's someone else in the picture that I want to get rid of. Sorry, Texan. So I'm going to get rid of my friend Texan right here. And I'm going to use the Photoshop AI remove feature to get rid of him. So let's see how that works. So I'm going to zoom in right here, select the first part, white area, select the second part of white area and just click the generative fill right here and wait for Photoshop to do its thing. And it's actually using the Firefly Image 3. This is the one you get access to if you're using the Photoshop beta version. And the reason why we're using the beta version, you're going to see it in a moment. It's going to blow your mind. So now beautiful, it's done. You can see that it filled up the backgrounds quite nicely. And it's always going to give you 3 options. So this is the option 2 and this is the option 3. I actually prefer the second option. You can see it messed up the leg over here. But since I don't really need Texan to be in this shot, I'm not going to mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to use the second feature, which is the AI remove feature to get rid of Texan. And let's see how that works. So I'm going to select all the areas around him and click remove and wait for the AI to do its thing. Awesome, beautiful. Now Texan is gone. I have a clean background to do my thing. So now that I have a clean plate, I'm actually going to reposition the photo in a way that I like and frame myself much better. So I'm gonna grab this and zoom in just a little bit so I can just put myself a little bit below. So I want myself right down here. Now, new problem. There's a space on the top, but no worries. Since the generative fill, we're gonna clear it right up. Select the area and click generative fill and wait. If you notice, whenever I click generative fill, it gives me a text box to enter what I want. Now in this case, I don't enter anything at all. I just leave it all up to the AI to figure out what is closest to the empty frame and just extend that area. So we're just gonna do it and just see what it gets. Beautiful. So now I have this option and I think this is exactly what I want. So now we're going to bring in the text that we created and just drop it on and see that new Photoshop feature called Harmonize and how it works. So now I'm going to go off into my downloads and drag in the poster. Now this is it right here. Once you drop it in, you're going to get rid of the white background. Now right in Photoshop, there's this contextual box that has a button that says remove background. So I'm going to click it and just wait, and all of a sudden it's gone. Let's zoom in to see if it made a nice remove. Now you can look at the edges that it looks pretty clean. I cannot complain. So I'm going to zoom out and then position it in a way that I like. So I'm going to grab it, put it right here. Let's shrink it up a little bit. Maybe something like so. Now when it comes to photography and compositing objects into it, one of the first things you gotta pay attention to is how it blends into the image, because your real image had a light source. The light source was coming from a specific direction, and if you add in an object that has a different light source, you're actually going to have a problem because it will not look as realistic as possible. Now for a long time, it took people to actually blend this into the shot with very complex procedures, dodge and bend, you name it. But now Photoshop has a new feature called Harmonize. So with one click of a button, a new AI is going to look at the scene and blend my object, which is the 20K text, into the environment of my image. Now let's see how that works. Now right off the bat, once you select the text, the contextual text box at the bottom is going to have a new feature right here that says Harmonize. Now all you got to do is just click it and wait to see the magic. Now with the Harmonize feature, after the generation, I'm going to get 3 options. Now this is the first option. I understand that it's looking at the background and it's putting the light behind the text, but I'm not so sure about this one. So we're going to check out the second option. I think the second option looks much better, and the third option, ooh, I think the third option actually looks much better. We're going to compare it to the original photo, which is this. You can see how flat this looks right now. And now with the new Harmonize feature, you can see that it actually added more contrast and form to the image that makes it feel a bit more authentic. But I think I'm going to go with the second feature. It's the middle ground between the two, and I think it's the one that looks the most realistic. So this is before and this is after. And now you can tell that it looks much, much better. Now, sometimes you feel like it's a little bit too much. You can use the mask, get a brush, soften the brush, reduce the opacity, and just brush in areas that you would want to bring back some light. So I'm going to bring back some light at the very top just to blend it in a little bit and on the side. And I think I like this much better. So now that we have our text in that looks like it belongs, the next thing is to add in some other sweet elements like the logos and the thank you, the fonts and typography and stuff like that. Voila. So that's how I did it. This is the very first option where I actually worked hand in hand with a new Gemini feature, and it actually made sense. So now let's pick the one that I just created, the one that had the pastel, and just replace it in the same process and see what that version looks like. So I'm going to select this one, turn off this particular layer, which is right here, and turn off this layer with the text. Go to my downloads, grab the 20, bring it into the shot and drop it in, turn the side, resize it to the way that I want it. Again, we have 3 options. I think the second option looks the most realistic. So this is the after, this is the before. Now you can see how it sort of fits it into the sky. It almost looks like it was there. And as usual, I might have to blend it in just a little bit more, put some light on the top. So just clean this area, put it in, reduce the opacity at the top like this, and bring it in. I'm so sorry if I'm going really fast. This is just to demonstrate how I did it. I would actually make a much slower tutorial on some of these text effects going on, so you can take your time and follow along. But right now, if you're new to Photoshop, just try as much as possible to follow the clicks of the mount and where I'm heading, and you might have a good idea of what I'm doing. But basically, I'm trying to explain as I go on in order not to make the video too long. I wouldn't really go deep into details into what each feature does. Grabbing the text, put it right there. So now we have this particular version we just did and the one I did before. Now, of course, I prefer the one I did before because the colors are striking and it allows you to see the 20K much faster as compared to the very one we just did where the 20K blends perfectly into the background, which will not stand out. That was not my intention for the artwork, but some people might actually find it beautiful and they would want to go with this version. It's up to you. Now, this is one interesting feature about image generation with text. Most of the time, you never ever get the same results twice. There's always going to be a change, and that's why we run the same prompt. We got a completely different results from what I did a few days ago when I posted this flyer. So now we're done. Now let's see exactly how the Gemini works if we're using it to generate human beings. Now, as somebody who works in the creative industry, photography has been the only way to actually get human beings in your shots. Now, with AI coming along, a lot of people are actually using AI models in their projects. Now, the issue with that is most of the time you can tell it's AI, but I think the new Gemini Ultra actually does a really good job at creating somehow realistic looking images that you can use for your commercial project. So we're going to use a test where I'm going to show you how I use the new Imagen Ultra to create these new campaigns for eBay. So next, we're going to test how it works with actual humans and use it for a real world project. Now, I think at the time that I was doing this, I was actually buying a camera off of eBay, and they have these really interesting ads on the website. So I decided, why don't we try to create something like this that could actually fit on any commercial website? And since eBay is a pretty big website, I wanted to see exactly how it would look like. So we're going to create this particular one right here that has the camper and the dog. Now, usually what I do for stuff like this, if I need to get a prompt or an image to look close to something I'm looking for, I just take a screenshot of the image and drag it off into ChatGPT. So I'm going to go into ChatGPT. So I'm going to come into ChatGPT and I'm going to upload the screenshot that I just took. So go to my desktop, since that's where my screenshots appear. Scroll down, find the screenshot and upload it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT to turn the image into a text prompt, right? So I'm going to say, turn this image into a text to image prompt. Sorry. Now, PS, since it has text on it, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to ignore the typography or the text on the image and give me just the image only. So ignore the text, the image, enter. Now I'm going to wait for ChatGPT to bring me the results. So this is what we get. So now ChatGPT has given me the exact same prompt. Now this is going to give me the same results. At this part, if you're somebody who's working on a project, you obviously wouldn't want to give the same results as eBay. So this is the part where you actually change certain things to suit the aesthetic or the style that you're going for. But for the purposes of the training, I'm just going to pick the exact prompt and go paste it off into Gemini. Now I'm going to use this opportunity to test the speed of the generation between ChatGPT and also the Gemini. I'm going to paste the prompt at the same time and see which one is going to finish fastest. Let's see how that goes. And enter. ChatGPT starting, so let's see how it does. Okay, so now it's done. Now this is the option that we have, and we're going to go ahead and do the same thing inside Gemini. So now I'm going to paste the prompt in. Again, make sure you're on the Imagen Ultra and not the 4. Make sure the resolution is on 2K. Pick the aspect ratio that you want. In this case, I'm actually going to pick 1:1. It doesn't really matter because I can always use the generative fill in Photoshop to get me the top and the bottom. So I'm going to pick it up and paste in the same prompt, and let's see exactly how fast this one does it. So already at 1 second, 3 seconds, 5 seconds. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Right, so it took about 15 seconds and you can see that it's a pretty interesting feature. And we're going to get a close-up of it right now and look at that. Looks super realistic. So now that we have it, we're going to download it, take it off the Photoshop and create our poster. So I've created my canvas. I'm going to grab it and go drop it into Photoshop, and right there. Again, this is what we have. I'm going to fill in the bottom and I'm going to fill in the top and hit generative fill and just generate. Again, we'll wait. I think ever since I got generative fill in Photoshop, I've become so lazy, because now I don't have to worry about resizing and clone stamping, which used to be headaches. But now with just a click of a button, it's actually gone. I think we're at a time where, you know, back in the day when people used to say, I'm gonna Photoshop everything, and your clients will think it's just a click of a button, and it turns out it was not. It turns out that I believe AI has brought us to a period of time where Photoshop is actually what it's supposed to be, a click of a button. Now look at how that filled in quite nicely, and I'm gonna go and merge all the layers. Since we're working off a reference, usually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag on the reference to put it onto this artboard, just to get my dimensions and my text placement and everything right. So this is the artwork from eBay. It looks like the picture is much larger, so I'm gonna increase this one to make it much bigger. So put it in somewhere right here. I think this makes sense. You see a little bit of the tent, which I think is good, so you get a good idea of the artwork we are creating. I'm gonna put in a little gradient at the top, so it sort of darkens from the top to the bottom. And I'm gonna drag that in right here, something like this. And if you're wondering what the gradient tool is, it's just G on your keyboard, and you're gonna get a gradient tool and just drag it on top. So with the gradient, without the gradient, with the gradient, without the gradient. So now I'm gonna add in some text. The text here says, ready, set, road trip. So we're gonna type that in. I'm gonna pick a random font like Gotham, I guess. So I'm gonna click it in. It says ready, set, road trip with an exclamation. Give it a white text. Let's make the font a little bigger, something like that. And put it right here. Yeah, I think that looks good. So this is a side-by-side comparison of what we had on eBay and what we created ourselves with AI. And to be honest, at first glance, you can rarely ever tell if one is real and one is AI, because the Google Gemini Ultra actually creates realistic images. I like the feel, the texture, the lighting. You can only really tell it's not real when you actually zoom all the way in and inspect the person. But even this, unless you have a trained eye, you might not be able to tell that it's AI. And I think it looks pretty good. You can actually grab this and put it on a website, and actually people might never be able to tell this image was real or it was created with AI. So let's go ahead and try the second example and see how that does. So for the next option, we're actually going to test how it does by generating multiple people in one image. Now, sometimes AI does really well by generating single portraits like we did before. And most of the time, it actually struggles to generate images that has multiple people. And that's where you can really tell that the AI is really stressing. So I think this is the perfect image of a mother with two of her children. So we're going to try to recreate this effect. Of course, the process is going to be the same. We're going to take a screenshot, take it over to ChatGPT, and extract a prompt based off of that photo. So let's do that. Now for this, because it's a landscape photo, we're actually going to choose 16:9, 2K, the same, hit enter. And this one did pretty good. So this is what we had initially. So we're gonna download it, go back into Photoshop, and let's see how that works. Okay, so this is the image we just created. So I'm gonna select the image, come in here and drop it in. So for quick reference, you notice that the images are all the way on one side and the text is on the other. And there's very minimal interaction between the text and the image, which is where the lady's daughter's foot goes right underneath the word with. So we need to make sure that when we're going to fix our image into our composition, we're going to put the subjects all the way on one side and the text on the other. Now from our generation, what we have is we have our text, our subject on one side already. So we're gonna have to create the entire left side. I'm gonna grab it in and select the entire area like this. And since we're using generative fill, I'm actually interested to see exactly what it's gonna give us right now. So hit generative fill and let's go. So we have this option, which doesn't look too realistic. And we have this option, which looks good, but kind of messy. And we have this option. And I don't think I like any of the three options. I actually prefer the last one, but the top side feels a little bit fake. So I'm gonna hit generate again. So I'm gonna hit generate again until I find what I want. Now, sometimes I can go 3 or 4 times until I find exactly what fits the image. And there are times where if it's not working, then I'm gonna jump in and actually type in a prompt to make sure that it gives me something that's close to what I desire. Now I'm just going off the top and just click generate to see what Photoshop can dream. Now I think this third option kind of looks good, but I'm still not really satisfied. So I'm going to go deeper and actually give it my own prompt. So again, I'm going to select the whole right side and I'm going to say generative fill, clean living room with wooden table and some minimal plants. So now that I've given a prompt, let's see how well it does with the prompt and when it was allowed to hallucinate on its own. Now I think this is a much better option. Let's see the second one. The second one is also much cleaner because it just gives us a nice backdrop where we can actually put a text. And the final one is okay. But I think I'm going to go with the very first option and zoom in here to see the plant. Now this plant doesn't look so good, but I think I'm going to go on with this particular option and I think I can work with this. So as usual, I'm going to create a gradient on the left side, make it a little bit dark so that we can put our text over there and bring it in like that. We don't want any form of distractions. So we have this particular text right here. Now we're going to come in and add a text. I'm going to paste the text right in since I'd already done this before. So we're just going to grab the text. It's a very similar process to what we did before. The headline, create another text right below with a different font size. And this time we're going to create another text on the top with the same font size, with the same font style, but different font size. And then finally the bottom at the bottom. So the button at the bottom. So since this is on the right side, we're going to flip the text all the way on the other side. So we're just going to align them to the left instead of aligning them to the right and put it in, grab the text box and move it over to the other side. And finally the eBay card. And this is what we have. So now in Photoshop, we have side by side. The one at the top is what we did with Gemini and the one at the bottom is what we copied from eBay. Again, as a designer and a photographer, it's really going to be hard for me to tell which is which if I had no prior knowledge that one was made with AI and one was made with a real photography. It's actually quite difficult, and I think it's going to get better and better as time goes on. Like I always say, this is the worst AI is ever going to be. Now I did run some comparisons to see how it squares up against ChatGPT. So let's jump into a comparison to see exactly what we're getting if we run the same prompts in ChatGPT. Now let's start off with the ChatGPT version. Straight off the bat, I can tell that this is AI generated. Now there's something about ChatGPT when generating humans that looks rather polished and has this glossy, almost perfect-like look to it. The light is so well even and everything is so well lit. Nothing is overexposed, nothing is too underexposed. Everything seems just right. The skin seems very smooth. And most of the time, that's how I know that something is ChatGPT generated. But this, when you zoom in and you look closely, you can tell that it looks kind of fake. The way the car is in the background, you can tell by the proportion of the car and the person. Everything looks too good to be true. Like, it's nice at first glance, but the longer you look at it, the more you realize that it's actually an AI. Even looking at the size of the dog to the container on which the dog is standing and the lady, everything sort of feels out of place. And now you look at the Gemini version, the size of the dog and on the yellow thing looks kind of great. The car in the background, you can see even the way the reflections light the car as compared to that of the ChatGPT version. Everything looks kind of great. The person on the right side sitting in the seats, even the way the grass looks not neat and not nice. You can see the patches in the floor. Now, all these imperfections go a long way in making the Gemini version look more realistic and I think more commercial ready. Now, this is another example where I tried 2 athletes with a prompt. And now I think in this particular example, they both pretty much look good. I actually like this ChatGPT version over the Gemini version. And I think in this particular case, the ChatGPT can shine because mostly in sports photography, there's this dramatic look that makes everything feel larger than life and very dramatic and very cinematic, which is what ChatGPT does really well. And in this case, Gemini, which goes more for a realistic look, actually did not really deliver in my opinion. So in this case, I think Gemini lost and ChatGPT won. But what do you think? Do you prefer the Gemini version or you prefer the ChatGPT version? I'd like to know your thoughts down in the comment below. Now, I tried it with this version as well, where I created a model, and in the ChatGPT version, you can see what I was talking about, the brown tint or the brown sort of color grading that goes on top of the images. That makes everything seem too perfect. The skin tones, everything seems too good. But now when you look at the Gemini version, you can tell that the subject looks like a real person. There's imperfection in the lighting, the shadow that's cast on the background makes sense with the direction of the light. The skin does not look too perfect. There's no sepia texture or color grading on the picture. It just sort of looks real as compared to the one from ChatGPT that sort of gives you an almost perfect vibe. I also used it to generate an ad, and now you can tell that ChatGPT missed some of the fonts and some of the text on it. It didn't make sense. And when you look at the Gemini version, it actually kind of looks good. Like both of them look good, but when you inspect closely, you can tell that the Gemini version looks more realistic. The size of the bottle makes sense, and the shape of it makes sense as well. If you look at the ChatGPT version, the concept still came through, but the beach to the bushes on the side and the people lying in the shade of the SPF 50 just sort of looks some way. And this is the exact same prompt, but the design came out differently. But I think in this case, I'm actually going to give the favor to the Gemini, and Gemini wins over ChatGPT for this version. Now for the last test, I ran an ad campaign for pollution here in Accra. This is what ChatGPT gave me, and I absolutely loved it. From the concept that it made with the hands holding onto the really dark lungs, supposedly from inhaling too much fume from cars. The front says still breathing this, the text at the bottom, the QR code. I think everything here makes so much sense. And now let's see the Gemini version. I think the Gemini version absolutely sucks. Like, I don't know what happened, but the Gemini version tries to make the lungs look real, the smoke feel fake, the fonts, I'm going to give this one to ChatGPT. So I'm going to say it's a tie in this particular comparison. But overall, I think I prefer the images from the Gemini in terms of realism when it comes to photography. When it comes to other things, I still will prefer ChatGPT image generation. For example, for this particular ad concept, I think the ChatGPT delivered, and with the exact same prompt, the Gemini could not do even half as good as what ChatGPT did. So you have to judge for yourself which one works in what context that you're using it. But I think right now I can confidently say I can use the Google Imagen 4 Ultra to replace most of my graphic design needs, especially when I'm working on a budget for clients who cannot afford for us to have photography done. We can confidently replace the entire photography process with the new Gemini Imagen 4 Ultra because the images are great. You can get them in 2K, which means that I can use them on billboards even if I want, and print them out and use them on social media and websites, and I'm not gonna have any stress. And even if I do, I could easily just use another AI to upscale the images to make it much larger and much easier to use. So that is the first test in using the new Gemini Imagen 4 Ultra. Now let's go on to the other features, like using the brand new Gemini Storybook feature to generate an entire storybook at one click, and let's see how that goes. Now for the Storybook feature, we're actually going to recreate the story I made in my other video. If you've not watched my previous video with the new ChatGPT 5, you can click on the link up in the top and go watch it. But we're going to recreate the exact same book we created with the exact same prompt and see what Google Gemini's version does. Now to access this new Storybook feature, you're going to go into Gemini, which will say gemini.google.com. And you're going to have on the left side, and you're going to have on your sidebar, this new gem that says Storybooks. So you're going to click that. And once you click it, it's going to open up. And so once it opens up, you can type in whatever prompt you want. Now in this scenario, I'm going to recreate something like this. I'm going to go grab that prompt and put it back in. But you can create whatever story you like. You can create stories for your friends, for your family, for your nieces, for your children. You can do whatever you like. So I'm going to grab my prompt and let's see what it gives us. I'm going to come in here, paste in my prompt and just click submit. And now I'm going to wait for Gemini to generate the book, and let's wait to see the beautiful book that it actually creates. We're not going to compare this to ChatGPT just yet because this has an entirely different process that I think ChatGPT just stands no chance. So now it's done. Now this is what makes it interesting. Before we even go through the page, I want to show you some few features that Gemini has that ChatGPT doesn't. Now, first of all, it already creates a flip book effect for all the pages. So you can actually flip through all of the pages and read it page by page. Now, secondly, you get the option to actually print the book straight away. So once you hit print, it goes into your printing software. If you have a printer hooked up to your computer, you can actually just print it, or you can download the PDF and send it off to a professional printer to actually print it as it is. Now, for a ton of people, this could be a whole new venture. You can actually start making books for sale to make yourself some money. And the last feature that I loved was it actually reads out the book to you, which I absolutely got blown away by. So when you click on the listen, it goes page by page and reads out the story to you. So first, let's flip through the book and see if it actually created all the pages and made sure that the image and the text were both looking right and accurate. Now from the cover, I like how Amma looks. The description of Amma is actually quite accurate based on the text that we gave it. And the first page looks great, Amma's pollination adventure. The second page also looks good. The third page has Amma, and you can notice that the character consistency is on point. Amma is wearing the same outfit throughout, even the same shoes. Okay, the shoes are actually changing. And let's see from page one. Okay, the shoes. Well, the shoes are changing. I think the shoes are changing, but the colors are the same. So you might not be able to tell, but the shoes are changing. The Amma still stays the same pretty much. Well, Amma appears much shorter in this version, but the description still remains the same. Pretty much still the same. Okay. Wow. Beautiful. I think this version is quite different from what ChatGPT gave us. I would have to check the ChatGPT version again, but off the top, I can say that this is good to go. It tells the story. The character consistency looks great. The context and the content all look good. Now let's check out the feature that actually speaks to you. So listen.
Amma's pollination adventure. Amma's pollination adventure. Amma loved her grandma's garden. One sunny morning, she saw a fuzzy, buzzy bee land on a big, bright sunflower. "What are you doing, little bee?" she whispered. Amma's friends, Leo and Maya, came to play. "I saw a bee doing a funny dance on a flower," Amma told them. "Grandma says it's called pollination." "The bee collects sweet nectar," Amma explained, "and gets covered in yellow dust called pollen. It's..."
Now it gives you two features, one with the higher pitch and one with the lower pitch. So let's listen to the lower pitch version.
"It's not just bees," said Amma. They watched graceful butterflies, a speedy hummingbird,
So the lower pitch version is actually a man.
carry pollen from flower to flower. "Pollination helps flowers make fruits and seeds," Amma said. She held up a juicy red apple. Her friends held up sweet strawberries and a bright orange. "Yum! Let's help our pollinator friends," said Leo. They decided to plant more colorful flowers to give them more food.
Now you get the idea. First of all, since it's AI, I have a little problem. The name Amma is not pronounced correctly, but I can understand that. And for the purposes of this test, I'm not going to talk about it. But it's such a really cool feature to have your story read out to you. And don't forget, all of this started from one prompt, okay? And what I did was, although my prompt was really long, you can actually just create a 3-sentence prompt and say, create a story about pollination for my children. And it's going to actually create it for you. And you don't even have to say much. You have the option to print right from there. You have commercial licensing because the features are all yours and nobody else's. And finally, if you don't want to print, you can actually have it read out to you. Again, this is a new beta version. It's actually experimental. So I can imagine the quality of this feature when it actually comes out. People are going to do incredible things with this. Now, this is the second feature that they dropped this week. Let's go on to the third and very exciting feature called Gems. Now, what if you could train Gemini with your own books, PDFs, videos, audio? Think about it, and have it sit on the sidebar ready to coach you, to guide you, and even run parts of your business for you. Well, that's the new Gemini feature called Gems. Think of it as your very own Jarvis. I mean, not in the Marvel movies, but like Google Gemini's own Jarvis right for you. Now, to use Gem, you still have to go through the Google Gemini, just like you log into ChatGPT, go to gemini.google.com, and on the sidebar, and you're gonna have this screen. Now, this is what's exciting. Actually, the Storybook feature is a gem pre-made by Google. Now, what this means is you can actually create such different type of gems for yourself using the Google Gemini feature. All you gotta do is click New Gem right here and give your gem a name, give it instructions. In the knowledge base, you can click on Add and add in everything that you need. You can add in PDFs, music, pictures, anything that you can use to train your gem as to what to do. For instance, if I wanted to create a gem for my business, I would probably find books from business coaches that I know I'm never going to have access to or can't afford to have their services. I can download all their books, load their books into my gem, give the name of my gem, probably the best business coach in the world gem, give it a set of instructions to teach me or to analyze my insights, my feedback, or whatever I needed to do that's specific, and then just hit create, and I'm going to get a gem that is made specifically just for me. So once you create your gem, it's going to appear right here, and you can also pin it in the sidebar and you can have a look at it. I actually have not created my gems yet. I wish I had for the sake of this video so we could actually see how it works. But the truth is, this works exactly like how custom GPTs work. The only difference is, now with this, you can actually create features like the flipbook effect that we had with the Storybook gem and the other gems around. You can go ahead and explore other versions, which you cannot create with custom GPTs in ChatGPT. So that's one thing that I like with the Google Gemini versions versus the ChatGPT versions. And the possibilities of the things you might create is just endless. So go test it out. Again, share your results in the comments and let me see how well it goes. And now finally, if you watched the Google keynote where they introduced most of the AIs a couple of months ago, they finally brought most of them out now for you to test. To do this, you have to go to labs.google/experiment so you can see all the new experimental AIs. One of the popular ones they teased was the one called Doppel, where you actually get a chance to try on outfits that you would want to buy online by uploading your picture and also selecting the outfit that you want. The AI will just put the outfit on you so you can see how it looks like. Unfortunately, I couldn't test this out because it's not available in my region. Google, you better sit up. So that's one feature that I wish I could test out, but they have a ton of other interesting ones. Most people are familiar with Flow. This is where you use video to create continuous videos. Now there's moving archives where you can bring old photos back to life, like what you'd see in Harry Potter. There's Stitch, which I really love as well. It allows you to create custom UI just by describing what you want, and this UI can be imported into Figma and used like final files. So for those who don't have any design knowledge but would want to build apps, now you can actually use AI to type out what you want. It's going to create the file for you and you can put it in Figma and just build your app from there straight away. Your UI is done. Again, it's not so perfect yet, but this is just experimental, so I can't wait to see what the final version will look like. Jules is also out. They did tease Jules. Is a pretty interesting AI coding agent. And there's a career dreamer that allows you to explore different careers for your professional life. I mean, there's a ton of them that I released. I'm actually going to take my time and go through all of these so that I can make more videos about them and see exactly how they can be applied into your life. Now, my final thoughts. The AI race is moving faster and faster than any of us can keep up. Every day, brands seem to be launching something exciting, and for everyday users, it's getting harder to separate what's genuinely useful from what is not. A lot of these tools look alike, they cost money to test, and creators like me are left to help you figure out what is worth your time and what is not. But after testing these new features, I can say this: I'm genuinely excited about where Google is headed. So I'll keep exploring the rest of the Gemini tools and tell you straight which ones deliver and which ones don't. But here's the bigger picture, and I want you to pay attention to this. This is the moment in history where AI is becoming more and more powerful and more accessible than ever. It's no longer reserved for developers or big tech companies. It's here for all of us. And if you lean in, instead of holding back, you realize that it's not as complicated as it looks. We're living through a shift that will define the next decade. So don't get left behind. The tools are right in front of you, and they are much, much easier to use than you think. See you in the video.